right. Okay, listen up. Where y'all headed today is real wealthy territory. I ain't tried this kind of territory before, but these people are loaded. It shouldn't be hard. So what are there?
No excuses.
And with loser night coming up in a few days, some of y'all need to step the fuck up.
Step up. Stay loud. Let's go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This train got no job. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's back it up and do it again. Say hi.
Ayo.
Got money.
Got jokes.
Say what? Goddamn. Get up your ass and slam. 071, 071, 071. All right, get to work, you lazy fuckers.
Yeah, because I guess I'm trying to. I mean, I'm very inspired by the real world, and people often ask me, "Am I inspired by films?" But actually, I mean, I love lots of films, but when I'm doing my own projects, I'm really inspired by real people, real places, and those are the things that kind of I build from. So. It all feeds into each other. You know, I start writing, I have a sort of idea about something, and then I go out, and then I see or meet someone, or see a place, and then I kind of feed that back in. It's just a kind of cycle of that. I mean, and it's getting more like that actually each time. I think in the first films I probably did write the script, then we go out and find exactly what I'd written, and this as I go along, I seem to be using more from the real world in my writing. You find out all kinds of amazing things when you're going about your life. And there are things in the script that I met a man in a bar in Austin that had a bucket of squirrels that he came and brought out to show me, little baby squirrels that he'd found fallen from a tree, and he had a flying squirrel that lived in his shirt, and I gave a flying squirrel to one of the characters in the mag crew. Mm-hmm. So, and I never could have imagined that somebody would have a flying squirrel in their shirt.
You can't make that up whilst
yeah, so you find these beautiful things that you just can't make up. So I feel like they're all gifts. So I want to use them. I was going to actually try and have all real people in the film, so everybody was not an actor. And we were looking for real girls in the places that we were going to be filming in, and Katie, we had a couple of casting assistants who were out. I mean, it's very time-consuming casting that way. It's actually quite a tough call in a way, much easier if you're looking for an actor because agents send actors and you get to meet lots of, this is a really hard way to look for someone. But one of our fantastic casting assistants, Lucy, saw Katie on a train station. She was having an argument with her boyfriend who was on the other platform, and she was very much like the character that was written. So, well, anyway, she came along to an audition, and she didn't really believe we were making a film at first. She was very suspicious, which, I don't blame her really. I mean, she should be. But she came along and did a little audition, and we didn't do very much, just did a little bit, but I felt that there was enough. I could tell that she could be herself, which is what I was looking for. On a beach in Panama City in Florida, we actually had someone else cast up until about 3 weeks before we started filming, and for personal reasons that person wasn't able to do the film. And I was in London at the time, and I was about to kind of get a plane and go and start the film, but we needed to find another girl. So I got on a plane and went to Florida because it was spring break in Florida, and there are literally thousands of teenagers on the beach. So we went, me and Lucy Pardee does the casting with me, we went down to Panama, and we sat on the beach for days looking for girls. And I think we found Sasha on the third day, which was lucky. So we found someone, which was good.
How does that work, though, in practical terms? I mean, do you set up little things saying, look, we're casting for a film, or would you just meet?
It's kind of dodgy at spring break because there's a lot of people, there are actually a lot of men with cameras, and I think there's a lot of people looking for girls for porn films. But fortunately, I think I don't look like a porn director, so that's a good start. Yeah, no, I had various things I could show them and say, look, this is a legitimate opportunity. And what we would do is we'd meet people during the day and then we'd audition them in Walmart car park later on in the day. So then they would come to there and we'd do something a bit more specific when we got them away from the beach. Was just crazy. It's just, wet T-shirt competitions and loud music. And we talk, I try and, at the beginning, talk to them about what it means a bit. I try and explain some of the, the good things and also some of the tough things. I think I said to Sasha, there'll be some days when you absolutely hate me. I'll be asking you to do things you do not want to do. I try and give a sort of balanced view about what it might mean, because it's also a huge adventure and it's a huge achievement and it can be fantastic. There's all those things, but it's also incredibly hard, long, tiring, exhausting. It makes you vulnerable. It brings about everything. Every feeling you've got, probably anger. Everything for all of us at some point. Telling them is one thing, and then them experience it is another.
None of the actors saw the script, so in a way I think that was good, because you could just focus on what you were doing that day, and you weren't thinking of the bigger picture. They weren't thinking about the bigger picture. That was down to me to think of the bigger picture, and I think for her that was a really good thing to do, because it just meant she had to worry about this right now, and I think that really was it really worked for her. Well, I mean,
Hey,
What the fuck's going on?
we're getting in.
Get in the car.
That's what I'm doing.
You got anybody who's gonna miss you? Not really. Okay, good. You're hired.
And I feel that every time I write. I feel like it's a hard thing to be by yourself, and I've been wanting for ages to. In fact, I think on the next project I'm going to do, I might even cast before I start writing, so that I have people. I'll know roughly what I want to do and who the characters will be, so I'll have the story. But then I think I might actually cast before I start writing properly. On American Honey, I didn't do quite that. I wrote and travelled. A little bit I did that. I had a script that I started working on. Then I would travel around America, learn more. And we started casting, and all those things that I learned, I would then start putting into the script. So in a way I did do that, but not quite as far as I think I might do on the next one. I might even go even further on the next one. And sometimes people say, oh, do you improvise? And yes, I do a bit, but actually, no, I don't really. Some of the American Honey is slightly different because we had such a big cast of non-actors, and I found them all, I just thought they were all beautiful, and I didn't want, they were not so much written into the story that I'd written, but when we were there and I had them in front of me, I wanted their faces to be seen. And so we did lots more. Some of the scenes on the bus are improvised, and
the music and the kind of hanging out as a group.
Yeah, that was genuinely how they were. Mm-hmm. And so I incorporated that. I wanted to, because I fell in love with them all, and I wanted their faces to be seen. So every scene is different. It depends who's in it. And there was a scene on the bus at the beginning that was very scripted about how we introduced everyone. They introduced themselves to Star, and they all said a little bit about who they were, or they introduced each other. And there was quite a sort of fairly tightly scripted scene. It was one of the first things we did, and we had quite a lot of unknown, people who'd never acted before. So, and we were on a bus, which was really hard to film on, and very little room for me to be right next to them. So it was actually really hard work doing that, and it wasn't quite working. So we kind of did the script a few times, but it didn't feel quite right. And then I got them to do it in their own way. Tried that a few times. And so that was completely improvised, and some of them would then go a bit quiet and others would come forward, and so that you didn't get everybody. And actually, when we came to editing that scene, it was pretty tricky getting the balance right, because we had takes that were completely improvised and very free, and then we had some more scripted takes. And actually, the interesting thing is that the edit we ended up with is a mix of the both.
Oh, okay.
It has a mix of the script and the improvised scene. So, and I think it feels reasonably natural. But I think if I'd done one thing or the other, if I'd kept it as a script, it wouldn't have felt very natural. you know, if I'd just done the improvising, I wouldn't have ended up with all the information. So I mixed the two in the edit, and I think it just, you know, works. I mean, I kept from them where we were going. I wanted every place to be like fresh, and I also wanted to try and capture their reactions to because a lot of them hadn't travelled much of America. So, you know, I was very intrigued by what they would make of certain places, and I knew that so for example, when we go around that very fancy estate in Kansas, you know, I know that a lot of them had not seen anywhere like that, and I wanted to know how they would view that and what they would say. So I didn't want to let them know they were going there, so it would be very fresh to them, and that they would have some, you know, fresh thoughts on when we arrived. I just can't. I get very fidgety if we get a tripod out or tracks. Occasionally, Robbie will try and say, "Well, if we're going across this rough ground, maybe we should have." And I'm going, "Oh, really?" But that was the Wuthering, where we had some really rough ground. So we did do a couple of things there like that. But mostly it's just, I just love the freedom of not having to restrict the camera's, you know, ability to move. I like being able to follow people. I like to give people the freedom to move the way they want to, and that means we have to go with them. And if we put the camera on, you know, on apparatus, then it restricts the way you can use it, and then you have to start giving the actors marks or start controlling the way they move. And I want people to feel free to move the way they want to move, and especially if I'm using non-actors, I want them to feel comfortable. So and handheld can be, you know, I've been in some of my films at the beginning when we've done scenes that are running and been right down the front, and it makes you feel a bit sick sometimes, you know. So, you know, it's not always like, you know, sometimes I think people kind of find it a bit, but I just overall just love it.